Hi, everybody. Douglas V. Gibbs here, and let's talk about the arm jab. And let's talk about the shot in the arm and whether or not the federal government can mandate that action. Now, I'm not here to get into treaties after World War II. I'm not in to get into the difference between a vaccine or an experimental medical experimentation on you or whatever. I'm not here to get into any of that. All I'm here for is, what does the Constitution say? What does history say? So now, for perspective, speaking of perspective, we got the shirt going, right? American Revolution was fought during a smallpox epidemic, 1775. So let's first look at the historical perspective. What did the people do, the founders, during that war when the smallpox epidemic broke out? Well, they did have a vaccine, and the inoculation was a real vaccine, which was basically a weakened or dead version of smallpox, and it was entered into the system. You would become sick from it with a mild form of smallpox for a couple of weeks, get over it, and then you would build an immunity based on that. Thank you, barking doggies. Live video can be fun, can't it? Be quiet, doggies. Jeez, I'm doing a video. Close the door, please. Live video. Don't you enjoy it? Quiet. Someone knocks at the front door, doggies go crazy. But anyway, back to what we're talking about. Live video can be a pain. But anyway. And so what did they do with that? It was not mandatory for the public. It was a voluntary decision on whether or not you had instead of jab, it was more of a slice and smear the sickness on it. But anybody that was in the militia or who was entering the militia was required to get it, because, we didn't need entire battalions suddenly dropping sick with smallpox. Smallpox had already swept through Europe, so the British troops were handling they had the immunities already. The American forces didn't have the immunities, so this was a concern. So the war was fought during a smallpox epidemic. A vaccine was available. It was mandatory for basically the military, the militias, and it was voluntary for the citizens. Now we look at the Constitution. There is a quote out there about that is said to be by Benjamin Rush. Says that he was upset that medical freedom was not in the Constitution. He never actually said the quote. He said a lot of things that would equate to being basically the same as that quote, but he never actually said that exact quote. When it comes to medical shots, anything like that, question is, can the federal government mandate that you get the jab? Can the Biden administration say, you know what, even if we have to hold you down, you've got to get it. It's the law. This is the way. Can they legally do that? No. There is no expressly enumerated authority in the Constitution allowing the federal government anything regarding anything medical. They don't have the authority to mandate that. Your rights, your personal liberty, individual liberty, your sovereignty as a human being gives you the right to say no. While medical rights are not technically enumerated in the Constitution in the Bill of Rights, the 9th Amendment says that if a right is not listed, it cannot be disparaged by the federal government as well. So it is in there without being there. Because remember, the Constitution is about authorities given. There's no authority given. Well, what about the state? Can the state mandate a jab? That depends on the state constitution. All state constitutions I've read, and I've read about half of them at this point on this, have informed consent or some variation thereof. So therefore, you have the ability to say no for various reasons. Religious exemption, other personal exemptions, blah, blah, blah. and you need to be properly informed of the full ingredients and everything has to do with the jab. Informed consent. Every state constitution I've read so far has some type of variation, or, well, state constitutions and state health codes have variations basically of that, saying that you can give your consent or not giving consent. You're allowed to refuse it. You cannot be required to take something that's experimental. You cannot be required to take something you don't have full information about, so on and so forth. Now, that said, the argument against what I just said by the powers that be and the lefties out there is a 1905 or 1907. I want to say 1905 Jacobson case. Jacobson v. the United States. And in this case, there was a smallpox epidemic going through Massachusetts, and the Massachusetts made the vaccine mandatory. If you didn't get the vaccine, you would be fined $20. The Mr. Jacobson was a pastor. He and his son, based on what I read about their history, it sounds like they probably were vaccine injured in the past, decided they don't want the vaccine. They're not going to put sick cells into their body to get themselves sick on purpose. They didn't believe that it was religiously that it was a good idea to do it, but they refused to pay the fine. Worked his way all the way up to the United States Supreme Court. John Marshall Harlan was Chief Justice at the time, and he basically ruled you've got to get you are required, they are allowed to mandate it, because when the safety of the community warrants it, individual liberties are suspended. First of all, that's a bad ruling. It's wrong. I don't care if they want to use that case for their excuse. It was a bad, egregious, unconstitutional ruling just based on our rights alone. There is no asterisks in the Constitution. There are no asterisks in the state constitution. There are no asterisks regarding your rights. There's no asterisk that says unless there's a virus or unless the community demands it. In fact, the whole point was the opposite. It doesn't matter if the community's demanding it. Your individual liberties are still more important. It doesn't matter if the mob is demanding something. Your individual liberties are more important. The whole point of the Constitution and our system and the way it was designed was to protect us from a raging mob demanding something. Raging mobs demanding something, that's pure democracy. That's mob rule. And that's something that we are not. We were never intended to be. We're intended to be a republic. So all of this argument about whether or not the federal government has the authority to mandate jab, no, there's no authority. Whether or not the state should, no. You have a right to say no. Life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. What makes me happy to pursue my happiness is not to be given some experimental serum into my body. I won't get into the details. I'm not going to do things that will encourage YouTube to ban this, but that's my position. That's the Constitution's position. That's the state constitution's position. That is your natural rights position. That's God's position. God gave you your rights, and you have a right to informed consent. And we know this to be true because even the lefties state you have a right to informed consent. We pull up something just for your information. So get the right mouse here. Second computer to pull this information up. I should have had it already up, but I was so busy with doggies barking that I forgot to do it. So I was talking about this on Constitution Radio last Saturday on KMET 1490 AM every Saturday, 1 to 3 p.m. every Saturday, KMET 1490 AM, Constitution Radio. And I have two co-hosts on that show, Dennis Jackson and and Alan Myers, and here it is. Okay, so we've got I've got language from Australia's Health Services, the United Nations, the Health and Human Services of the United States, federal government, the United Nations, and World Health Organization together on a document, and all of them use this language or something close to it. I think I took this language specifically from that last document, the UN and WHO together. The right to health contains freedoms. Though these freedoms include the right to be free from non-consensual medical treatment, such as medical experiments or in research or forced sterilization, and to be free from torture and other cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment or punishment. Let me go back to the second part. These freedoms include the right to be free from non-consensual medical treatment. Now, I was reading about this and how important this is, and then I read the left's judicial legal opinion of it, and they said, well, that, because I was looking up Nuremberg. So, well, Nuremberg and that was not about inoculations. It is about experimental treatment. Besides, the shot is approved by the government. First of all, I don't think the FDA has approved it, but what does that matter? All of those treatments that you're upset about, the whole reason for Nuremberg in the first place was government approved activities, medical activities. The Nazi government approved it. It was government approved. Government approved doesn't mean anything to me. So, well, the government approves this vaccine. So, if the government is the problem, why would I trust anything they approved? Once again, back to the Constitution. The whole point was to protect against a potential tyrannical government. Created the federal government, but put bars and a cage around it because it was potentially tyrannical. So why would I say, well, if they approved it, then I get, shoot away. I don't care if they approved it. I have a right not to be subject to anything medical without my consent. Constitution gives the federal government no authority to mandate any of this. They can make all the suggestions in the world. There is no authority. I don't care what Chief Justice John Marshall Harlan said in the Jacobson case. And the states, according to their state constitutions, you are required to be allowed to make the choice because you have freedom. You have personal liberties. And your individual liberties are not suspended to save the community. The community is not more important than you. You are more important than the community. When you thrive, the community thrives. When you look out as an individual, it is good for the community in the long run. Besides, we know this isn't about the community. It's about control. It's about other things. Because if the jab was as effective as it is, then why do you still going to need to wear a mask? Why are people still getting sick with something? And why are blood clots a problem? These are facts, so don't misinformation ban me, you bunch of jerks. If it's safe, then why do you still got to wear a mask? Not that they're effective. I'm just asking questions. Constitutionally, can't mandate it. Sorry. I have individual liberties. Thanks, but no thanks. Your mob rule mentality does not suspend my individual rights. When the mob says I must do something, I have the liberty and the right to say, no, I don't. No, I don't have to, just because the mob demands it. Hopefully that clarifies some stuff for you. I appreciate you watching. United we stand, combined we kick butt. God bless America. God bless you. Don't forget websites, right? Actually, let's move my fingers to the right place. There we go. DouglasVGibbs.com, politicalpistachio.com. Thanks for watching. Hopefully you learned something from this. Hopefully you're feeling a little better about certain things. Talk to your church about your church putting out a a religious exemption letter. So if they try to demand something, let's say at work, say, my church, through a lawyer, has this letter saying that I have a religious exemption. You can not demand that I get the jab, or we can duke it out in court. Your choice. For those of you who are asking about, yeah, but what if the business is demanding it? That's your option. So thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. God bless. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet. Don't forget I have other channels, and all these videos also go on bitshoot.com/DouglasVGibbs in case it vanishes. And God bless. We'll see you next time.